So today's session, we're going to cover what the perimenopause and menopause is. So we're going to do that quite broadly. We're also then going to cover why being active is important, particularly during this transition for individuals. We'll cover some of the challenges and barriers individuals may experience, and then we'll look at how we could deliver menopause-friendly activities across the city as well. We're going to start with Sarah and covering what the menopause is.
Yes, so we're going to go through, first of all, the signs and symptoms of menopause. So this is my inclusivity statement. Just want to have... Thanks. So first of all, I just talk about the natural cycle of a menopausal woman, just as a bit of background knowledge, really. You might know this already, I'm sure, but as you can see, the two main hormones that we talk about in menopause is estrogen and progesterone. So in a premenopausal woman, you have a peak of estrogen at around day 14, which is when women ovulate. And then it tends to drop off, and then you get a peak of progesterone later on in the cycle. The progesterone prepares the uterus for pregnancy, and then as it drops away and declines, progesterone hormone, the shedding of the uterus occurs, and that is when we have a period. So as we grow older, our hormones change. And you can see in the first third of this diagram, for a premenopausal woman, we have these cycles where the hormones do change, but they change the same most months, so they stay pretty steady. But as you go through perimenopause, the estrogen levels start to fluctuate quite wildly, and they change from day to day almost. And then in the background, you've got the progesterone slowly declining as well. And when you've gone through menopause and your periods have stopped, the estrogen and the progesterone continue to decline until it stabilizes when you're postmenopausal. So how does the menopause impact women's lives? So just some figures here. So 50% of women said that symptoms had impacted their home life. 79% said they experienced hot flashes, and 70% night sweats. So large majority of women do have these hot flashes and night sweats. More than a third said it impacted their work life. 36% said it impacted their social life, 50% their sex life, and 42% said symptoms were worse or much worse than they had expected. So the menopause affects everybody. So it affects younger women. The average age in the UK of menopause is 51, but some younger women do go through menopause. If you go through menopause between the ages of 40 and 45, it's called an early menopause. If you're under the age of 40, it's called premature ovarian insufficiency. And 1 in 100 women will go through an early menopause under the age of 40. Older women are affected by menopause because some women continue to have menopausal symptoms for the rest of their lives, and they continue to have treatment forever, actually. Not many, but a small percentage are affected by it. So those with disabilities and have pre-existing conditions, so women who may have had an oophorectomy, had their ovaries removed, or a hysterectomy, their uterus removed, they will go through a surgical menopause. And some medications, such as chemotherapy, will cause menopausal symptoms. And your ethnicity has an effect on when and some of your symptoms as well. So Afro-Caribbean women will go through menopause younger than women in the UK. So the average age for Afro-Caribbean women is 49.7. And they tend to have a longer menopause. They tend to have more severe night sweats and hot flushes as well. South Asian women, so women in Pakistan, have an even earlier menopause, and the average age is 46.7, so quite a bit younger than women in the UK. So, and they are, Asian women are at higher risk of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and menopause can have a further detrimental effect on these risk factors that are already there. So trans women who are taking hormone therapy may experience menopausal-like symptoms, especially if their hormone therapy is unstable. And trans men who are assigned female at birth will experience an age-related menopause process if they do not take hormone therapy and they have retained their ovaries. And basically all partners, whether female or male, can be affected by menopause because, it's distressing to see their partners if they're really struggling through the menopause. And especially men find it difficult to sometimes empathize and sympathize, just simply because they're not going to go through it themselves, and they just simply don't understand what women are going through. So they find it as well difficult to know how to support, their partner or friend or colleague. So how we diagnose perimenopause and menopause. So perimenopause is literally the time leading up to your last ever period. So women over 45 presenting with symptoms, and we'll go through the symptoms in the next few slides, basically don't need blood tests to diagnose it, because just the fact of age, if you're having hot flushes and night sweats, it's pretty sure if you're over the age of 45, it's due to the menopause. And having a blood test doesn't change treatment. Okay, so and sometimes can confuse matters because the hormones fluctuate. It could be normal on one day and abnormal on the next day. So if you're over 45 and you're pretty clear that it's menopause, then it's treated. It can be treated or advice given. Menopause is the last ever period, and it's officially diagnosed when you haven't had a period for full 12 months. So no bleeding at all for 12 months is when you're menopausal. And as I said before, the average age in the UK is 51. And postmenopause is the time after this. So the time after this 12 months. So it's kind of diagnosed retrospectively postmenopause. So just a little bit about premature ovarian insufficiency, or POI, because you may come across women who are going through a very early menopause. So as I said, 1 in 100 women will experience this, and they will have blood tests to diagnose it, because they need to rule out anything else. Why are these women younger having these symptoms? So usually change in periods, menstrual history is the first indication that something's not quite right. And women in this category or group have a higher morbidity and mortality during menopause. So we do exclude pregnancy, obviously, and polycystic ovaries syndrome is excluded as well, because that can affect periods as well. But women with untreated POI are increased risks of osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease, because the estrogen, when it declines, you lose the protective element of having estrogen in the body. And we know estrogen protects the bones and it protects the heart. So that's why it's important that it is treated. So we go through some of the most common symptoms. And the first one would be the no or infrequent period. So it's very unusual for periods to stop from one day to the next. Usually they change over months, really. So they can become further apart. So you may miss a period 1 month, they may become lighter, or they may become a lot heavier, but they're just changing. And then hot flushes and night sweats. So hot flushes, so about 80% of women will experience hot flushes, and they usually last for about 5 years. and or longer for some. And hot flushes are described as the heat that rises from deep within you. So it kind of rises up the body to the face. And women become quite red in the face. They start to sweat quite profusely. They can do. And, you know, a lot of women find it really embarrassing. It's a very obvious sign of age. It's a very, you know, they feel very self-conscious when they have a hot flush in public in particular, start to wildly, you know, try and cool themselves down. And quite often women will start to avoid situations where they may have hot flushes. So it does affect life sometimes quite a lot, detrimentally. Night sweats are when women wake up in the middle of the night, they're sweating profusely. They have to change their night, you know, their bedding and maybe their clothes or whatever. And of course, night sweats can lead to fatigue, insomnia, feeling really washed out the next day. So it has a knock-on effect for work, especially the next day. If we go on to the next slide, you can see some of the factors that can exacerbate or make hot flushes worse. So alcohol, some women find that when they have even a small amount of alcohol, they start to flush up, they start to have a hot flush. Stress is a big one. So women who feel have a stressful life tend to have more hot flushes, and it kind of one exacerbates the other. So you have a hot flush, then you become stressed, and you become stressed and you have more. So it's a sort of a vicious circle, really. And smoking can cause hot flushes, caffeine too, and spicy food. All of these things can make hot flushes worse. So mood changes are very common during menopause, and you know, women can feel sad or irritable or angry. Their mood is fluctuating day to day quite wildly, and women feel like they've lost their sense of control, and it can be really distressing when they feel tearful. Nothing else has changed in their life, maybe, but they just feel kind of flat in mood and low in mood as well. So it's very common, and quite often this is one of the first symptoms for some women before even their periods notice a change in periods, that their mood is just, it's not as good as it once was. They just feel low. Memory and concentration loss. This is also known as brain fog. You may have heard of this. And being forgetful can make people feel bad about themselves. You know, it triggers feelings of anxiety, and it can be difficult to manage in the workplace in particular. And up to 80% of women will experience brain changes or brain fog during the menopause. And a recent study by Dr. Lisa Mosconi, shows that grey matter is reduced during the menopause, but that these changes are transient and are usually completely reversed once gone through menopause, which is a good thing to know. So yeah, just forgetting words, you know, like you're in a, maybe if you're doing a meeting or you're presenting, and just forgetting your words, forgetting having to write yourself little notes all over the place. It can be really distressing, and some women do feel like they're getting early onset dementia. It can be that bad, and worrying, obviously. So headaches. So women do experience more headaches during the perimenopause, and this is caused by fluctuating hormone levels, estrogen levels. And so if you had maybe hormonal headaches earlier on in your younger life, then they may come back during menopause, when the hormones are starting to become quite erratic again. So during this time, a lot of women say that they find that they have a low libido, then they find that they have a lack of interest in sex, and it's very common for women to lose interest in sex during the menopause. And this can be due to hormonal reasons caused by declining the hormones, including testosterone, but it could also be for other reasons, such as intercourse just becoming really uncomfortable. And some women experience during this time a negative body image, and they have quite low self-esteem. They can also experience extreme tiredness too, and so they're just too exhausted for sex, and they just don't feel so attractive to themselves, and they feel they're not so attractive to their partners. So there's lots of reasons around this time why women have a lack of their libido becomes lower. Vaginal dryness and irritation is common too. So you've got estrogen receptors inside the vagina, and the vaginal walls become less lubricated, they become thinner, they become more inflamed and sore. And a lot of women feel like they're having frequent urinary tract infections because it just feels really uncomfortable. Some women start to have stress incontinence or urinary urgency as well. So there are lots of different urinary symptoms. So that's quite a common thing, and it can be also again painful to have sex because of this vaginal dryness and irritation caused by the declining hormones. Joint and muscle stiffness is very common. Again, I keep saying very common, but it is all these symptoms that I'm talking to you about. So a lot of women find that, especially in the morning when they wake up, they feel really stiff in their shoulders and their joints and their knees and wrists, and just walking down the stairs to get a cup of tea is a real effort. So they feel almost like they are having osteoarthritis or something, but it is due to these fluctuating hormones again during menopause that causes this joint and muscle stiffness. So hair loss around the age of menopause, some people notice the volume and condition of their hair changes, and they notice that they don't have as much hair as they once did. So it starts to come out more when they wash their hair or brush their hair. Some women will go on to experience problem with hair loss around the hairline, at the front and at the crown, and may find it thinning all over. So this can be due to decline in estrogen levels, but also age and genetics can also contribute to hair loss during menopause. Palpitations are when the heart starts to beat really quickly in the chest, and maybe faster. You become aware of your heartbeat. And 50% of women can experience heart palpitations during the menopause. And they can happen at night, and some things can exacerbate or make palpitations worse. Things like alcohol can make it worse, stress can make it worse, caffeine too. So some of these things, some women just cannot tolerate alcohol or caffeine when they go through the menopause because of increasing anxiety, palpitations, and symptoms like that. Mostly palpitations are completely there's nothing to worry about with palpitations during the menopause. A lot of women do go to their GP about them and have it checked out. They might have an ECG. More often than not, it's not dangerous. But I guess if anyone does complain of palpitations and then worried about it, then they should see their GP just in case. So weight gain, the amount of women who talk about putting on weight, you've probably heard this yourselves during this time with your clients. And it's a very common side effect of perimenopause and menopause. And most of the weight, as you probably know, accumulates around the middle, around the abdomen and upper body. And as estrogen levels decline, visceral fat increases and makes up about 10 to 15% of the total body weight. And at the same time, there's a slowing down of metabolism, and lean muscle mass reduces as well. So good nutrition, staying active is crucial during this time, and maybe changing lifestyle to maintain a healthy weight. But it's one thing that lots of women come to see me and say, nothing's changed. My diet hasn't changed. My exercise routine hasn't changed, but I'm just putting on weight. And unfortunately, it's difficult. It's just keep going with that healthy eating, keep going with the exercise, because it is part of menopause. It is part of aging. Just the weight distribution in different places. So it's difficult to counsel women on that too, as you probably know. So this is just the slide, because it just talks about all the very varied symptoms of menopause, and I'll give you a moment to read this list. So you'll see that some women have a couple of symptoms, or one or two. Some have many, and a lot of women can tick off most of these symptoms when they read through it, and it's a bit of an eye-opener to realize why they're feeling as they are. Just give you a moment to read this list through. So I don't know if any of that is surprising at all, but things like the itchy, crawly skin, it's almost like little ants crawling underneath your skin. And it's a strange sensation. I've had it myself, actually. I am postmenopausal now. I'm putting it out there. And and a lot of these symptoms I can relate to, actually. But yeah, things like dry mouth as well, and digestive, just feeling you don't digest your food so well. And there's lots of things going on at this time, as you can see. So long-term symptoms. So for a small number of women, menopausal symptoms such as hot flushes are lifelong, and they make an informed decision along with their healthcare practitioner to maybe take hormone replacement therapy for the rest of their lives, because it's the only thing that they feel well with, and it's a joint decision between themselves and their health, their GP or whatever. So and decide quality of life against risk factors of taking long-term medication. But the decline in estrogen levels have a negative effect on the cardiovascular system, and women sometimes notice during this time that their blood pressure and their sugar levels start rising, and their cholesterol level starts to increase. And the loss of estrogen also has a negative impact on bone health too, and in the long term can lead to osteoporosis. So a healthy lifestyle is important, as I'm sure you know this, to adapt a healthy lifestyle, to include a nutritious diet, increase activity, connect with friends, take time to relax, cut down on alcohol, and always stop smoking. And I always say, if anyone has any concerns, they should be seeking help from their healthcare provider. But for some women, it's a real time to kind of take stock of their lives, and start maybe doing starts a new exercise regime, etc. Yeah, so any questions? I don't know if we want to have questions now or later, but if there's anything anyone's desperate to say, or anything they want to talk about, any comments at all so far, please do. If not, don't worry. It's fine.
So we'll carry on, and if anyone's got questions at the end on
Yeah,
that part, we can continue.
no problem.
So why being active is so important during this time, and I'm sure you're aware of the Chief Medical Officer guidelines around physical activity and the importance of being active, and meeting that 150 minutes a week and 2 days a week strengthening activities as well, that often get forgotten as part of that CMO guidelines and the messages on the importance of achieving this. But the message really is about doing something. Achieving this can be quite difficult for people, and actually the benefits of health, the most benefits has been seen from doing nothing to something, and that's an important message we want to take away from people today. We know that there is no point in life where doing more exercise doesn't improve our health, from the Chief Medical Officer himself. We also know it's something we don't regret. I'm sure we've all been there. You can't be bothered one day, but we do actually feel good once we do exercise. And it is essential. And it's this kind of thing we get, we talk about self-care as a bit of a luxury, and actually it is a necessity for our health and well-being. So just keeping that in mind. I'm not going to go through these benefits. You in the room will know all of these things, but it's just to make a point of all these things are going to help people during this transition, but most importantly, we're going to focus on the benefits during the menopause itself.
So, regular exercise does all these things, and it does reduce symptoms such as hot flushes. And in fact, some of my friends who are very fit and do lots of exercise, I've noticed they do tend to have not as many hot flushes as other women who don't do so much exercise. So exercise can really help with hot flushes. And we know that it improves sleep, and it definitely reduces anxiety and low mood, helps with weight and bone strength, and improves our heart health. It's good for social time as well. It's good to get together with other women and people to share experiences, whilst you're exercising as well. And like this thing that Laura was talking about, nurturing yourself and looking after yourself is so important, and it's good for our mental health too, to know that we're doing that. And we do this in there. Actually, it says about the menopause health walk. Sorry, Laura. We do run like monthly health walks along the seafront. It's the last Wednesday of the month, and I go along, and we have one of Laura's colleagues as well from the council who goes along, and we chat about menopause as we walk, just to encourage people to take more exercise. Thanks. So we did a survey, and 82% of women experienced menopause symptoms, and 70% felt their symptoms had a moderate to severe impact on the quality of their life. And 55% had symptoms for 2 years or more, and 27% for 5 years plus. And we found that active women were more resilient in coping with these, using physical activity to manage their symptoms. So eating well and lifestyle, we have devised this little, well, Laura, not we, I haven't had anything to do with it, but Laura has devised this leaflet about eating well for menopause. It's got some really good recipes in there, but we know that eating well for heart and bone health, it's not only during menopause, it's for everyone. Getting enough calcium and vitamin D. We know that many people in the UK don't have, are not necessarily deficient in vitamin D, but have low vitamin D because we have such long winters and dark days. So we do recommend that everyone takes a vitamin D supplement. And also reducing alcohol, because it can affect sleep, it can affect hot flushes and anxiety. And so many women cannot tolerate alcohol during perimenopause and menopause. It just makes them feel really rough, especially if they do have a little too many. It just takes ages to recover. We always advise not to smoke, and reduce caffeine use after 12 midday, because it can affect sleep, and also it can also exacerbate anxiety and palpitations and hot flushes too. And so eating well and changing lifestyle for the better just supports mental health and well-being overall.
And we will attach the Eating Well for Menopause recipe booklet with the slides, so you'll have the digital version. We do have physical versions, so if anyone would like any hard copies to hand out to clients, or have at any of the centres, venues that you're working from, if you feel that's appropriate and you'd like that, then we're more than happy to send some of those out to you as well.
So women in sport, research suggests women may be dropping off from physical activity during the menopausal years. So I suppose if you think about all those symptoms, and you're having hot flushes, you might be feeling low in mood. You may be having a little stress incontinence as well, which is really common as well, which is still not talked about very much at all between ourselves or anybody really. But it's no surprise that women may not feel like doing physical activity during this time. And 38% of women aged 45 to 54 do not achieve the Chief Medical Officer guidelines. 23% of women aged 45 to 54 are inactive. And 30% of women we surveyed said they were less active during menopause. So 84% of women who do not meet physical activity guidelines would like to be more active. So there's, the will is there. I guess it's just getting the motivation, getting people out there, trying to encourage. And it's interesting, this statistic, that 90% would consider physical activity if recommended by a GP or health professional. And I think GPs and nurses are so busy in their clinics, they often forget to mention lifestyle during their consultations, because they just need, they're just so busy themselves that they forget that. They just want to fix the women, people and move on. But it's important, I think, to remember this statistic.
So we're going to look at some of the challenges and barriers, and obviously I think with some of the symptoms we've covered, they're quite obvious as well as to why people might not feel that motivated or maybe less active during this sort of time. And there's this sort of midlife factors that kind of coincide with the menopause factors. So we know women are still less active than men. It's getting better, and that's great. We still know there's work to do to encourage more women to be active. And there are these midlife factors that play a part in that, in terms of people that, as I said, not prioritising their health, having those caring responsibilities can be really challenging to manage that if you've got family, children, or even caring responsibilities for parents, etc. Can really be a barrier to people having the time to be more active. And then we've got these menopause factors in some of those variety of symptoms that Sarah has covered, in reasons why people may not feel like going out and doing some activity, whether they feel exhausted, whether they're feeling embarrassed with some of the symptoms they're having. And there is this still stigma, which is what our Menopause at Work project is hoping to do, to try and educate and talk more about menopause, and hopefully encourage people to feel more confident talking about menopause as well. And we can see people feeling their symptoms over the last few months since they started have just got worse. But we also know that people who don't meet those physical activity recommendations reporting more symptoms and also lower quality of life. So it's really important that we try and get that message out, that for some people physical activity can really help with some of those symptoms they may be feeling. And there's many more barriers. Some of those are just general for women going into venues and feeling like it's not for them, feeling quite insecure, quite embarrassed, not sure what to do, not really feeling like the venue or space is somewhere they see themselves. But then also the symptoms added on top of that. So people not knowing that actually the physical activity can be really good to reduce symptoms. So hopefully we can raise awareness of that more and more, so people might want to be more active to see if it works for them. And also people just having that stigma where they don't feel they can talk about it. They feel a bit embarrassed if they've got physical symptoms, so hot flushes, maybe they are having heavy bleeding, and they don't really feel like going out and being active. They feel a bit judged, and they have that fear of around that. And then there's this sense of loss that some people feel during this time. So particularly around their youth, some people, particularly previous generations, more where they get to the menopause and they feel it's the end of their years, which is very much not the case, but still having that stigma with people around them, having that vision. Femininity, feeling the loss of, and Sarah alluded to some of these symptoms like libido, your eyesight, your hair, your skin, your muscles, just not feeling yourself, and that may affect your feelings of that femininity that you have been gone. Fertility, for some people, they may feel a loss in that opportunity to have more children or children at all. And some people just feeling around health and mortality, just a quote here, someone just feeling consequently a bit unhinged, and that can just feel really distressing, to just not really feel in control of how you're feeling, or not really understand sometimes what's going on. But hopefully more awareness around perimenopause symptoms can help people feel a bit more aware of what's going on. And there is still this stigma in society. So lots of people we've been working with across the project saying they've had to keep symptoms quiet, which only adds to the strain and the stress and just exacerbates all those symptoms. People at work particularly feeling like other people are judging them. They're not feeling as capable as they used to be. Some people having people make fun of them. So again, if you're having this experience, you at work, you then after work perhaps don't feel so motivated to go out. It can add to those feelings of anxiety and stress. And it's quite an isolating place that lots of people tell us about, where people just don't feel they can talk about it. So hopefully that's what we want to change today, people feeling like they can. And this girl can have some great resources, and it's really important that we have this sort of message around it's not doom and gloom. There is this sort of menopause and keep going message that we can have, because we know active women feel more empowered to take control of their life, to help manage their symptoms and their health through exercise. So is this opportunity for a new beginning and hopefully we can get this positive message across, particularly around people who want to manage their symptoms. So it's a time to reevaluate, look at their healthy lifestyle choices, maybe make some changes, an opportunity for me time and an opportunity to prioritize it in order to help with things like symptoms. Some people who are particularly really impacted by their periods have no periods. That's always a benefit. If you really suffered, not having them is always going to be a benefit, and an opportunity to improve people's health. So some people using it as a tool, as a positive thing of not liking what's happening and saying, actually, I want to do something about it. I am going to take up some exercise. So there is this good new beginning opportunity. And women in sport have some great information and resources, and I've got their report on the slides at the end, so you can go away and have a further read if you want. And it just mentions these core values that women sort of have during this time, and a lot of that is around wanting to feel good. That's their top priority, feeling good, having good quality of life, looking good. And so exercise obviously can really help with these. But just under that, nurturing families and friends was obviously really important as well. So that connection is really key with friends. So being active with friends can be really beneficial, but obviously bear in mind that challenge that people face around family and caring responsibilities as well. So what we can do to make menopause more friendly environments. Today, really the biggest thing is making it your business. So coming along today is the biggest thing we can do. We know simply having a bit more of a no can really help clients feel more comfortable, feel more cared for, understood, which we know is one of the main reasons around stigma and not feeling like they can talk about it, just adds to that strain and stress. So it's really important that we kind of share that we've got this education today, we've got the certificates you can share, you've done the course, share awareness and hopefully help clients more. But there's other things we can do, and this isn't an endless list, and some of these things may not resonate with you depending on how you work, if you're in a venue or not. But there's some things we can do around providing information on safe activities, so encouraging people that it's safe to exercise during this time. It's actually really beneficial. Educating people on that exercise helps so that people know that, and that might encourage people to be more active during this time. Providing people with opportunities and incentives where possible. If there's an opportunity for friends to do it together and doing discounts or any tasters or anything. And some women talked about having flexible offers, no commitment, where they might want to chop and change their activity during that time. So having something where they can do that, or just when they're having a day where they just don't want to, having that flexibility where they can miss a class or a session without losing the discount that they might have had. Building in social time. So some people have heard of the term menopause cafes, and that's sort of been going around where people are adding on these spaces for people at the end of sessions. It could be before, could be meeting 15 minutes before the class, it could be meeting for half an hour and a cup of tea afterwards, but just creating that social time for people to feel like they can connect more. Having supportive instructors, which on the call, I'm sure everyone after the session today hopefully will feel a bit more confident around what the menopause is, and therefore we can show that empathy and understanding around individuals' needs. Everyone's going to experience it differently, and maybe we'll be able to change our adaptations in sessions and exercise modifications if we need to with clients, changing in preferences. Some people finding that less active, less intense, less contact kind of activities are more favourable for them, not for everyone. And so they may change the activities that they want to do. And some of that can be if they've got achy joints, they may find some of those intense activities too much. So it may be changing to a lower activity, lower impact, something that they feel more comfortable with as well. So it's really just understanding our clients and their needs as well. Judgment-free zone, so people can feel comfortable exercising in their space and not being judged if they do change activities, not taking it to offence or feeling like they need to go signpost to some other classes and maybe sharing resources between each other of what classes are available. And also just reminding ourselves of some of those symptoms around brain fog. Some people might be a bit forgetful, forget names, which can be quite embarrassing. Some people may, not be able to take instruction as quickly. They need a bit more time. If someone's saying for them to do something, it may take them some more time than usual. So just being a bit more aware of that. If it's possible, air-conditioned venues, fans are really good. Private changing rooms, people saying they feel quite insecure. Sharing the importance of me time, using that message to help people get more active, having inspiring, relatable role models. So you yourselves might be on the call today that may have gone through it, will go through it, are going through it, that might feel comfortable sharing their experiences. But there's also the Women in Sport and Getty Images. I've put a link on there. They've got loads of resources on there, some images that you can use in any marketing. They've got videos and inspiring stories of women who are active through menopause as well. So we can share those resources as well. And just to make note that it's World Menopause Day on the 18th of October. So if you want to take part and be involved in any way to help share this message, you could offer maybe a taster session or just promote that you've completed the course and raise awareness around that you'll be, people may have more likely to come to a class if they know the instructor maybe has a bit more empathy and understanding around what they're going through. You could run a menopause campaign or just pop up posters if you work in a venue on the notice boards, raising the awareness of the benefits of being active. Or you can take part in our citywide campaign we're going to do, which we'll launch in September, where you can make a pledge as well. So if you want to stay in touch, just drop us an email. We'll make sure you get the information around the citywide campaign. We also do a Brighton and Hove Workplace Health newsletter as well. So if you're interested in signing up to that, then just let us know. And I just wanted to finish with an example, really, just to put it into perspective, really. There was this lady who was fairly active before menopause, really suffered with hot flushes, night sweats, which really affected their sleep. And so as a result, they weren't as active. They weren't feeling like they wanted to be as active as they were before. But they wanted to make that change. They enlisted a personal trainer so they could get that motivation. And also they weren't really sure what activities they should be doing during that time. And so as a result, they really valued that me time away from their responsibilities, having that space for themselves. But more importantly, just within a month, they noticed some of those benefits of being active. So they had more energy, they were sleeping better, and they felt the old me was coming back. So they really did help with their symptoms. And when you get the slides, there's just a link here on menopause stories with a whole host of stories of examples as well, if you're interested. These are just resources for you to take away. So Women in Sport resource here, you'll get a link to when you get the slides, and it's just got a whole report on surveys and information around women in sport if you're interested in more detail. The NICE guidance do reference that actually women should be promoted physical activity as part of their treatment. It's on the NHS website. When you look at things to do, exercise is under pretty much every symptom of how to manage menopause. And I have put the Women's Health Strategy on there just because this is where the funding's from for our Menopause at Work project. So there's a 10-year Women's Health Strategy. And if you're interested in more of what else is going on to support women's health, there's a link there. I've also put just some information on studies showing that actually it helps with the symptoms, and just made reference to This Girl Can, just to take it a bit further in making women-friendly, safer spaces for women as well. And I couldn't not allude to our 10-year strategy that we launched this year of Let's Get Moving in Brighton and Hove. So hopefully this can be part of getting people more active in the city.
So here are, if you want to take a look at our website, Menopause at Work, if you just type in Menopause at Work Brighton, you'll get to our website. And we do this workplace certification course, which is an online course. It's free, everything is free. It also details how to run a menopause campaign. It gives policy templates. There's a little quiz. There's a free symptom checker, which you can do yourself, or you can signpost other women too. And it also gives a lot of healthy lifestyle resources as well. So yeah, you've got this QR code, I think, which will get you onto the website too. So there is a little video here, but I don't think we've got time to play it, have we? So we'll leave that one for now, but you'll be able to click on it when you get the slides. And then we just a bit of our upcoming events. So you're welcome to come to any of these events. So we've got the online 2-hour training sessions, they're free. And we've got a My Menopause session on the 22nd of October, as you can see, in the evening. And this one, if you want to learn more about hormone replacement therapy and other therapies, this is where I'll be there to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Well, I haven't covered it in this presentation, so we do cover it in that presentation. Okay. And then if you're a line manager and you're supporting a team of people, we've got another session on the 5th of November. And then for any men that you know who may, would like to come along and learn more about menopause, how to support their colleagues or their employees, or anybody at all who wants to understand and what the symptoms are and what it's all about, that's on the 12th of November. And then we've got our free health walks, which I mentioned before. And the next one is next week after next. And we start at the Peace statue and we walk along to the Rockwater. So we just a little stroll along there. It's nice, especially in the summer. And then we're doing a business breakfast event on the 1st of October. It's at the Holiday Inn, 8 a.m. in the morning. Very welcome to come along to that as well. You find all the links to join and on our website. So yeah, that's it.